The movie begins after humanity is devastated by war. The only survivors are the inhabitants of Chicago, who band together to form a separate state. To safeguard their citizens, the city's founders erect a protective wall around its perimeter and organize society into distinct groups. These factions are based on 5 fundamental human virtues. The erudite prioritize logic and knowledge, while the Amity focus on cultivating the land. Members of the Candor faction uphold honesty and justice above all else, while the Dauntless faction serves as protectors. The soldiers of Dauntless guarantee security within the city's walls without exception. Meanwhile, the Abnegation faction instills altruism in its members, leading them to live modestly and prioritize the welfare of others. Despite being called impoverished by other factions due to their humble lifestyle, the selfless members of Abnegation are entrusted with governing the state. Those who do not fit neatly into any faction are labeled as outcasts. The story follows the protagonist, Beatrice Pryor, who is raised in Abnegation. Like all teenagers in the city, she undergoes a test at the age of 16 to determine which faction she belongs to. During Beatrice's test, the administrator notices her unconventional thinking, leading to the discovery that she is divergent according to the test's analysis.
Yeah, but what was my result? Abnegation, and erudite, and dauntless.
Tori discreetly alters the test results to designate Beatrice as Abnegation and instructs her to keep this information confidential. The guiding principle of the utopian society is faction before blood, meaning that once individuals choose a faction, they must leave behind their familial ties. During the initiation ceremony, the Pryor siblings make divergent choices. Caleb, Beatrice's brother, opts for the erudite faction, while Beatrice herself selects Dauntless, the faction that has captivated her since childhood. This decision marks her transition into a new family. Casting a final glance at her parents, Beatrice joins her fellow Dauntless initiates as they ascend the metal beams to street level from the subway system. With some hesitation, she leaps into the last train car, where she encounters Christina, a fellow transfer from the Candor faction. Together, they disembark onto the roof of an unfamiliar building. Their arrival is greeted by Commander Eric, who explains that the only way to enter the compound is by taking a leap of faith. Beatrice volunteers to go first, earning some derision as her bold decision surprises those who expect selflessness from her. Upon reaching the ground, she is assisted by a fellow Dauntless member, still shaken from the fall. Struggling to introduce herself, Beatrice seizes the opportunity to adopt a new name, choosing Triss amidst applause. As the recruits descend into the faction headquarters, they are separated into those born into Dauntless and those who transferred. The former group is led by Instructor Lauren, while the latter, including Triss and Christina, remain under the guidance of a scout named Four. Christina can't resist teasing him about his name.
4 like the number?
Exactly like the number.
What happened? 1 through 3 were taken?
The young man advises the flustered girl to be more discreet and keep her thoughts to herself. Leading the initiates to their quarters, Four highlights the significance of the pit, a central location in the life of the Dauntless faction. Triss becomes increasingly absorbed in this new lifestyle, reveling in the freedom to openly express her emotions. She follows Four with curiosity, examining the tattoo on his neck. Upon reaching the initiates' living quarters, Four explains that these communal spaces will serve as their homes for the next 10 weeks. Christina's discontent with the shared toilet and shower facilities prompts her to voice her dissatisfaction without hesitation. In response, Four guides them towards the exit, reassuring Christina that here, everything is transparent and open, much like what she values. As everyone changes into their new uniforms and symbolically burns their old clothes, bidding farewell to their past lives, the group heads to the cafeteria. Seated opposite Will and Al, they engage in a lively discussion about the merits and drawbacks of different factions. The instructor intervenes calmly, redirecting their focus to their current environment. The tapping of metal cups signals the arrival of the commander of the Dauntless, prompting the initiates to stand at attention and listen to his words of encouragement. He urges them to embrace bravery, believe in their abilities, take pride in their roles, and respect their calling. The crowd erupts in cheers, lifting the initiates onto their shoulders. The rigorous 2-stage training regimen emphasizes endurance, strength, and precision, while also teaching the initiates to confront their fears and become resilient. Competition fills the air, particularly when sworn enemies find themselves in the same room. Eric's harsh and uncompromising training style stands in contrast to Four's approach. In one training session, Eric pits the first and last jumper against each other in a sparring match, emphasizing its importance. Caught off guard, Triss takes several blows and soon loses consciousness. Eric reveals the final scores, with Triss's name near the bottom, making her realize that her chances of being cut from the program are high. To lift Triss out of her despondency, the group decides to get tattoos as a distraction. At the salon, Triss encounters Tori, whom she knows, and who questions her motive for joining Dauntless. However, Triss reassures her that she has made this choice with determination. Rising early, Triss diligently practices on her own before the others awaken. During training, Four identifies her weaknesses and provides guidance on how and where to strike to gain an advantage over her opponent. Triss appreciates his attention, subtly observing the features of the handsome instructor who stands closely beside her. In a duel, Christina succumbs to the pressure from her opponent and surrenders. Using her as an example, Eric imparts a crucial lesson of the Dauntless. He times how long Christina hangs over the abyss without a safety net, clinging to the edge of a bridge with her hands. Water dripping from the ceiling adds to the test's difficulty. Exhausted, Christina prepares to release her grip, but the commander orders her to be pulled back onto the bridge. This illustrates one of the primary principles of the faction. The Dauntless never give up. Ford decides to take his charges on a brief tour. En route to the wall, he explains that despite years of calm, the situation could change at any moment, emphasizing the need for preparedness. Ahead lies the Amity farm, its land still scarred by the war and rumored by Christina to be haunted by monsters.
Let's just say they built the fence for a reason.
Almost all of Triss's knives find their mark with precision, a contrast to Al's struggles as one of his weapons slips from his grasp. The commander takes notice and orders all the weapons to be collected from the floor. However, Al, fearful of potential injury, refuses to comply. Eric responds calmly, instructing Al to stand against the wall without moving while Ford throws knives as close to his body as possible. Any flinching or movement during the throws would mean expulsion from the faction. Unable to bear watching her friend in distress, Triss volunteers to take Al's place in the trial. With each subsequent blade from Ford, the danger increases, until red liquid begins to trickle down Triss's ear. Recognizing her bravery, Eric awards the young Dauntless extra points, emphasizing the importance of discipline in their training. Triss, upset with Ford for causing her harm, later learns that it was an intentional intervention to halt the spectacle. Triss earns admiration and respect from her peers not only for her act of courage but also for saving her friend. However, amidst her newfound allies, Triss also gains an enemy in Peter, a transfer from the Cantor faction. He belittles Triss, dismissing her worthiness of her chosen name, insulting her friends, and provoking her at every opportunity. Tension rises when the head of the Erudite, Janine Matthews, appears in the Dauntless compound, sparking Triss's concern as she fears the Erudite may be searching for divergence. During a combat session, Eric intentionally selects Peter and Triss as opponents. Ford offers guidance to Triss, pointing out Peter's weaknesses. Armed with this knowledge, Triss strikes first, landing a blow to Peter's throat. In retaliation, Peter unleashes a barrage of attacks, overpowering Triss and causing her to lose consciousness. Triss faintly sees Ford leaving the ring before succumbing to unconsciousness. Upon waking, Triss discovers she is facing expulsion from the faction. Determined to change the decision, she races after the departing train, earning the surprise of Eric. Impressed by her resolve, Ford helps her onto the train, leading Eric to ultimately allow her to remain in the faction. The commanders orchestrate another competition for the initiates, introducing a tactical game with the objective of capturing a flag. Teams are armed with training weapons that simulate real wounds with neurostimulating rounds for a brief duration. As the captains assemble their teams, the Dauntless leader prioritizes strength, while Ford selects individuals who are motivated and agile. Upon reaching the designated location, Eric assumes a defensive position at the far end of the pier. Meanwhile, Ford listens to his team's suggestions regarding tactics and battle strategy. Amidst the discussion, Triss takes initiative, scaling the Ferris wheel to gain a better vantage point of the terrain. Impressed by her idea, Ford joins her to provide support and assess the situation firsthand. However, as they ascend, Ford's discomfort with heights becomes apparent when a decaying crossbeam gives way under Triss's foot. Desperately seeking support, Triss is caught by her captain, who pulls her close. On the Ferris wheel, Triss learns of Ford's fear of heights and teases him, prompting a playful exchange. Observing the opponent's flag atop the lighthouse, Triss proposes a strategy. While one group distracts the opposition, Ford engage their captain, and the girls move to secure the flag. Triss successfully handles encounters with Peter and Molly Eatwood en route to victory, waving the flag triumphantly alongside her elated teammates. Following the competition, Triss garners sympathy from her faction members, who invite her to a modest initiation ritual in the Dauntless style. Attached to a steel cable, Triss experiences the exhilaration of flying over Chicago, barely managing to contain her adrenaline rush upon landing. Ford congratulates Triss on her victory, commending her bravery and courage. Having surpassed the first stage, Triss now faces new trials ahead, symbolized by rising above the red line. When the Dauntless venture into the city for their assignments, Natalie Pryor seizes the opportunity to meet with her daughter. Overjoyed, Triss embraces her mother and confides in her about her secret. Mrs. Pryor confirms Triss's suspicions that she is indeed a divergent, cautioning her to be wary of the erudite and subtly suggesting that the psychological test can be manipulated. As Triss enters the office, she witnesses Molly Eastwood being escorted out, appearing disoriented and detached from reality. Following Molly, Triss undergoes the simulation under Ford's guidance, urged to exhibit courage. In a trance-like state, she confronts her deepest fears, realizing they are merely illusions. Upon regaining consciousness after 3 minutes, Triss's swift resolution leaves Ford puzzled, unable to comprehend how she manages to overcome her phobias so rapidly. The aftermath of the psychological test leaves the initiates in a state of shock. Triss's exceptional performance draws suspicion from her peers, exacerbated by Peter's insinuations about her rapid advancement and potential influence on others like Al. During the second test, Triss finds herself submerged in a sealed cube filled with water. With a determined tap on the glass, she shatters the structure and regains her composure. Four's curiosity gets the better of him as he repeatedly questions Triss about her faction assignment from the sorting test. Despite his probing, Triss insists on abnegation. Tori reveals that her own brother was also a Divergent, recounting how he swiftly conquered his fears using unconventional methods during a similar test. Tragically, he was later found at the bottom of an abyss. Tori warns Triss of the dire consequences if her secret were to be exposed within the Dauntless faction. Distraught by the revelation and feeling misplaced in Dauntless, Triss turns to her brother Caleb for support, pleading to return to abnegation. However, Caleb refuses to aid his sister, leaving Triss feeling more isolated than ever. Janine Matthews encounters Triss in the stairwell and extends an invitation to her office, masking her intentions with false warmth. In her office, Matthews subtly hints at the existence of dangerous divergents whom the abnegation shelter, insinuating that she hopes to rely on Triss's loyalty should someone close to her betray the law. Triss is escorted home by Matthews' chauffeur, but her return is marred by a violent attack at the Dauntless stronghold. 3 assailants, including Triss's former friend Al, attempt to throw her off a cliff. Recognizing Al among her attackers, Triss is saved by 4, who ensures her safety until morning. During lunch, Al seeks Triss's forgiveness, but she rebuffs him. Shortly after, Al is retrieved from a deep pit, leading Triss to blame herself for the unfolding events. As Triss grows to trust 4 more, she confides her secret in him. 4 suggests training her to confront her fears as a Dauntless, rather than as a Divergent. Through this process, Triss learns that a person's number of fears is reflected in their chosen name. Observing 4's final fear, Triss realizes his true identity as the son of Marcus Eaton, leader of the Abnegation faction. Rumors of Marcus's abusive behavior towards his son Tobias, known as 4, are confirmed, contrasting with Triss's father's lifelong denial of these rumors. A cozy evening leads to an intimate conversation between Triss and 4. Triss asks 4 to reveal the tattoo hidden beneath his shirt, tracing her fingers over the 5 faction emblems. Expressing his desire not to be confined to a single identity, 4 reveals his aspiration to embody bravery, selflessness, intelligence, honesty, and kindness. He acknowledges the need to work on kindness, embracing Triss and sharing a passionate kiss. The girl reciprocates but asks not to rush events. The next morning, 4 shows her how the Erudite are unloading equipment on the territory of Dauntless. He produces a vial he found, containing a serum capable of turning free individuals into obedient slaves. The potential to create an entire army with such a drug is evident. As the final test approaches, 4 and Tori wish the girl good luck and immerse her into the simulation. Facing aggressive crows, she defends herself with a stick found near a field engulfed in flames. Triss attempts to flee the fire but ends up tied to a pole. As the flames burn the ropes and scorch her hands, she cools them in a nearby swamp. Suddenly finding herself in what seems like a glass aquarium filled with water, she blocks the flow with her clothes to avoid drowning. The events of the previous night evoke a new fear in Triss's mind as she resists 4's persistent attempts to dominate her, only to snap back to reality. Janine congratulates her on passing the test and unexpectedly hands her a pistol, requesting her to shoot her parents who stand before her. Triss pulls the trigger and wakes up for real. Following the Dauntless leader's congratulatory speech, all soldiers are lined up in 4 columns, and tracking modules are implanted as commanded by their superiors. Triss observes as her friends silently don uniforms, while inert members of the faction line up, awaiting orders. When one of the Dauntless rebels questions the gathering, he is met with a fatal bullet to the forehead. Triss realizes that the neuroleptic doesn't affect the divergent organism and, to preserve her life, carefully mimics the behavior of the others. As everyone is armed and loaded onto the train, Triss finds 4 and questions whether he's under the drug's influence. Catching sight of each other, they share a sigh of relief and grasp hands tightly. The train arrives at Abnegation, and the Dauntless crowd conducts a thorough search of every house, herding faction members into one central location. Triss and 4 locate her parents' house, where they manage to evade the soldiers' raid. On the streets, they encounter Eric and his accomplice. The Dauntless leader arrogantly confronts his longtime rival, relishing in his perceived dominance over him. Assuming him to be docile, he points a gun at his head, ready to eliminate him. Triss, unable to bear it, takes aim at Eric. Despite his confidence that she won't shoot, she asserts her humanity and wounds him in the leg. The Dauntless forces surround the rebels and bring them before Janine Matthews, who believes that Abnegation needs to be controlled due to its disruption of the faction system. She insists that someone must stop the divergence, or it will spell the end of the world. Janine takes 4 with her and orders the girl to be killed. Natalie Pryor, who has defected from Dauntless, intervenes to save her daughter from the executioners. In an attempt to reach her father and the abnegation leader, Triss's mother tragically dies. Triss independently seeks out her relatives and finds Caleb alongside her father, who has decided to leave the faction upon learning of the Erudites' plans to destroy abnegation. Triss looks upon Marcus with condemnation and later informs her father of her mother's heroic sacrifice. Leading the abnegation to their stronghold, she takes Peter hostage, who guides them to the control center. Andrew Pryor realizes there's no time to waste and engages the guards, sustaining life-threatening wounds in the process. Triss infiltrates the command headquarters, where Janine Matthews is preparing to launch the abnegation purge program. To prevent interference, they immerse 4 in a simulation. Triss faces resistance and aggression from her beloved, resorting to activating one of his fears by simulating the killing of an innocent and holding his own gun to her head. She whispers declarations of love and understanding, which finally break through to 4, prompting him to act. While 4 deals with the erudite henchman, Triss throws a dagger, pinning Janine's hand to the monitor. Despite Janine's refusal to shut down the program, which triggers the destruction mode, Triss finds a way to subdue her. She inputs a neurostimulator and takes control through the program. Janine, realizing the catastrophic failure of her plan, is horrified and comes to her senses. With the program erased, the soldiers no longer pose a threat to abnegation. Triss swiftly incapacitates Janine with a single blow and flees the scene with her allies. Now branded as outcasts, stripped of family and faction, they face an uncertain future. Tomorrow may bring more battles, but for now, they ride the train to the end station. Which faction would you pick? Share your thoughts in the comments below, hit a like button, and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.